Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Shiksha Mantra. And here in Shiksha Mantra, we haven't placed quite a few days any videos. So obviously, there's some problem. Uh, the problem is regarding my throat, and simply because of this soreness in throat, uh, I wasn't able to put any video here, and I failed to go live either or to put any video for you. So that's a problem that I have faced for quite some times. Now it's almost over, though still some problem is continuing. But whatever it may be, I have found out that I must need something that is a comeback. And this comeback is possible only when I rehabilitate myself into my regular activities. And so here I'm back once again in my channel with some fresh video. Probably you have all found out what's the thumbnail we have today. Yes, it's regarding phrasal verbs. And as you know, phrasal verbs, these are very much important. It's a very important part of our learning, and we have to use phrasal verbs in different aspects of our language, and by using phrasal verbs, we make our language rich as well. If you consider American English, their phrasal verbs are used in plenty. So you have to learn phrasal verbs. Uh, if you find my words effective, or if you want some other discussions, you may write it down there in the comment section below, and I'll try my best to put your answer there, and as much as possible to have it. So let's return to our discussion of phrasal verbs. As you know, when a verb accepts a preposition or an adverb, and it with this preposition and adverb gets a noun or a pronoun as its object, it becomes a phrasal verb. And actually, with a phrasal verb, what we get, that's very interesting. Actually, here with a phrasal verb, we make an intransitive verb transitive. Sorry, I have some problem with throat. Uh, excuse me. So, what's there and how it works? Suppose here I'm taking a sentence. The racing car blew up after it crashed into the fence. Blew up, exploded. So here, blow means something else, but when I say blow up, it means different. Suppose we may do the same thing with agree. I agree. You may do this. So here, agree doesn't get any object, and it becomes what? Intransitive verb. Now, if I say, I agree with you, so here we get with, and this with would help us to put an object after this. And what's that object? The object is me. So now the intransitive agree becomes transitive. So that is how when we use a phrasal verb, an intransitive verb becomes transitive. We would have a detailed discussion about transitive and intransitive, how a verb can be used transitively and intransitively. Would have a discussion, a live discussion over it. If you really want this, you may write me down and I'll try my best to quench your queries. So let's shift to phrasal verbs now. For phrasal verbs, another thing is very much important that most of the time we overlook. We fail to understand that a phrasal verb is fixed and it has some fixed positions to be used to. And there, for the phrasal verbs, we must consider those positions. And more than that, you can use a singular phrasal verb in a singular context with a singular meaning. So its meanings, their meanings are fixed. You can't make them as you please. Rather, you have to use them as they are. So that's why phrasal verbs need some more care. And without phrasal verbs, our language gets pungent. It would become passive. You won't get that flavor in your language. But as you know, okay, I'm coming to that point. First, let me discuss. In American English, phrasal verbs are very frequent. You'd get so many phrasal verbs in American English that without these phrasal verbs, it's really difficult for you to deal with American English. And on the other hand, a phrasal verb creates an informal situations. If you have observed that video, the last video I have put there in Shiksha Mantra, that's regarding formal and informal English, there we have discussed it. Phrasal verbs makes the sentence informal most of the time, not every time. We have many phrasal verbs which are used in formal English as well, but most of the time they are informal. So what you'd do, you'd have to use phrasal verbs in their true color as they are normally used according to their dictionary or their lexical senses. So, how would you get it? Obviously, you'd get it by memorizing the meaning and the uses of a particular phrasal verbs. Now, how many phrasal verbs are there? How many phrasal verbs to remember for this process? There are thousands and thousands of them, and it's really not possible to memorize them by reading them and to use them in proper positions. Actually, we, the learner of English as our second language, that means when we learn English as a foreign language, it's really very difficult for us to remember those phrasal verbs actually with their uses and their meanings because the list is a voluminous one. So, how could you remember so many things by memorizing them? Is there any process to do so? Yes, dear friends and students. Today I'm going to share with you a process that is very simple but very much effective to remember well how the phrasal verbs work. So let's discuss the strategy. Actually, why is the strategy? That must be discussed first. Why to use a strategy here for phrasal verbs? You may feel that the strategy is not very much important here. But if you really want to learn something, strategy is your word. You have to put your faith on strategy. You have to be strategical. Why? Because I consider your exams, your learning, everything is just like a war. So when you put yourself into war, When you are in a war front, obviously you have some strategy. When you are on a chessboard, you create some strategy, and without the strategy you can't do anything there. So strategy is important. You have to get strategical. So how to make this? To make this, you must have a clear strategy, and that would work well. The strategy must be simple but effective. So what we are going to do here as well, if you consider phrasal verbs, how would you find them in your book? In your book, the phrasal verbs are written, suppose I have taken an example, that is break into. Break into, that is enter forcibly. The fireman had to break into the room. So, so what? Sorry, actually, there's a problem with my throat, and it's really difficult to continue. However, I'm trying my best. Please bear with me. So, break. This is the verb. It is attached with in, and we get break into. Now, break into, its meaning is enter forcibly, and we have an example. The fireman had to break into the room. So here, when you consider a phrasal verb, what you get? You get the verb, then the preposition. So together the phrasal verb, or sometimes the adverbs as well, not preposition only. Then its meaning, and also another thing, that is a supporting sentence or an example. Now, which of them are important? I consider each and everything as important. I don't consider anything as unimportant, because that's a very devastating habit. As a student, you ruin yourself when you try to find out important and unimportant, because nothing in your book is unimportant, rather, everything is important there. So, what would be your strategy? Your first strategy would be you have to remember everything. You have to remember the things that are, sorry, I have had a call here, and let me mute my telephone. So you have to remember everything. Everything in the form of what? Everything in the form of phrasal verbs, its meaning and its example. Now, there's another thing that you'd fish there in a phrasal verb, and you'd have to remember it as well. So, what is this? Suppose if you consider a phrasal verb like call back. So, there you would find call somebody back. Call somebody back. You would find this in your list like this: call somebody. There in the middle, you would find somebody. Now, what's that somebody? That somebody is actually an extra part that is added to your phrasal verbs list. So, callback means return a phone call. But when you get that somebody in the middle of the phrasal verb, you have to remember that the somebody is very much important. You can't skip it. You have to remember it too. Why? Because when you use it, you would say, I called the company back, but the offices were closed for the weekend. I called the company back. So called the company back. Here the company, that is the somebody. So these phrasal verbs would be used parted. So that parted is very, very important. Where to use, what to use, something or somebody, what to do here. Like when you do it with agree, you'd find it in each and every book. Agree with a person. So when there's a person, you have to use with. You can't skip it. You have to do it always as per it is in your book. So agree, this is something that you just have to make. and you can't do anything other than this. So, if we consider this one, agree, how would you find it in your grammar book? You would find agree with a person. So, then uh, you have to use it only a person only. You can't use it other than a person. So, it's very important to remember what's there and with what. So with agree, we also get to, we also get on. So agree with, agree to, agree on. These are possible. But where to use with and to and on, we have to learn it as well. Agree with goes only with a person, idea, or solution. Whereas agree to, this is about something, and agree on, this is an idea or situation. So you have to remember this. I agreed to lower the commission rate. Agree to lower the commission rate. So you are agree. You are making an agreement with what? With a person to something. So when you use them in practical field, you have to remember all these points. Without remembering them, it's really very difficult to use them properly. So it demands what? It demands your actually ultimate care to remember all these things. But how? So here we would use a very simple strategy. What's the strategy? Let's begin our strategy here. The first thing that you would have to do, you'd take a list of phrasal verbs and idioms. There you would find that they are put sequentially from A to Z. Now, just keep a list of 10. Now go on learning them in a single day from the beginning to the 10th. Just try to remember them. Don't try to memorize them. Don't try to put much effort, but repetition. Our strategy would be repetitive method. You have to learn them by repetition. First 10 in the first day with several repetitions. Second day from 1 to 10 and then plus 10, 20 with repetition. Third day from 1 to 20 revision plus 10, 30. Then in the fourth day 1 to 30 revision plus 10, 40. So fifth day, what it would be? It would be a revision of 1 to 40, then plus 10. So you'd learn 50. And in this way, you'd have to complete from A to Z once and then back. From Z, you'd start the same thing. 10 backwards. Then in the second day, 1 to 10 plus 20 from the back. And from Z, then Y, X, you'd come backwards, B, and then A. So you have completed it repetitively, not by memorizing, not by putting any effort, not by wasting any time, only from A to Z repetition and then Z to A repetition. But it would be from 1 till the last. Every day you'd have to do this. And it's simple. Don't waste much time over this. Only go on reading one after another. You'd have to make several repetitions, and with these repetitions you'd find it very easy to go with and to find out what's there and to explore them in your own way and to memorize them as you please. So after memorizing them well, you can do a lot in your English. There's another point, dear friends and my dear students. Most of the time, I have found many of my students to do this. What they do? They make the list some tick marks as important, and the importance are ticked, sometimes single tick, sometimes double tick, sometimes star marked, important and unimportant. And that's a very great point to remember. Do you have any vocabulary, any word in a language as important or unimportant? Each and every word has their own importance. So don't consider anything as either important or unimportant. Everything is important. Don't make out such a list. Don't make such a list out of your phrasal verbs list, because there are thousands and thousands of them. You can't skip it. Just you have to remember them by reading them for several times by repetition. That's a simple method. Try to follow this and let me know how it works. And if you have any problem with any other chapter in English language or in English literature, you may ask me. I'll try my best to discuss this and to share it with all of you so that you can find it easy to go deep into the language, to learn the language in a very effective way. So we'd pretty soon return with another effective video on English grammar or any other learning topics. So till then, tata, bye, good night, stay home, stay safe.